So we are getting through this rig, guys. It's looking good. We got the head, the upper body. Now we're going to do the legs. The nice thing about the legs is it's pretty much the same process as the upper body, just with different pieces. So if we think of the pelvis as the torso, each leg as the arm, and the foot as the hand, we're going to be doing the same thing. So I'm going to press Control H, create a new comp, and plug it in right here behind everything. I'll call this the lower body comp. And we can add those underscores, right, to kind of make it a little bit bigger. I'll press Control R, and let's see the pieces we need. Right now we're going to need the pelvis, the upper leg, the lower leg. We probably don't need an ankle because of the way the shoes are set up, and then we need the shoes. So we'll go pelvis, 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 upper leg, lower leg, and then we'll just do the foot for now. Okay, we'll plug these in, and let's move them around. So the pelvis will go in the front. We'll have the upper leg, the lower leg, and then the foot is behind. We'll give each one a peg, just like this. And let's draw the pelvis. So, on our line art, we're going to grab our rectangle tool, grab the line, drawing. So remember, it's symmetrical, so we can use that trick. Oops, let's make sure we have the right thickness. And we can just kind of use our rectangle tool. Right, I'm just going to round the edges a little bit. And if this is bugging you, we can turn off the torso. Right, let's round the edges a bit. It comes a little bit under the shirt, that's fine. We'll use our cutter, marquee, make sure this is rounded. Select sort of halfway, delete. We'll select our points, Control C, Control V, Shift up, left, flip it. All right, you guys must know the process by now. Show our strokes. We're gonna turn on snapping. Whoop, snap that in. Right, snap that in. And that's why I say if you're gonna use templates, don't really use them when you first start out. Only use them once you know the processes, because that's kind of how you remember to do things. All right, turn off snapping. That's looking fine. We can kind of adjust this to how we want it. Okay. I'll move these over. I'll also add this kind of detail in the front. Call it pelvis detail. Here, give it a peg. And then we'll plug it into the pelvis peg, just like that. This is going to be like our beard lines. So we're going to go one thickness smaller and just plug them right through the pelvis, just like that. No, we can copy, move it over, so they're exactly the same length. That's good. Perfect. Let's fill the pelvis in with some color. There's the pants. Right? And let's cut these details, right? So think of it again just like our eye, but even easier because these are the same color. So they kind of blend in. And actually, let's drag in our auto patch. We'll plug that in here. That should be good, just in case we need to auto patch the pelvis later. So the legs are going to be the same process as the arm, but it's going to be even easier because they're straight. And we're going to drag a rectangle tool all the way down. right? We can kind of adjust these points here. We can even turn on snapping if we want to snap them right into place. We can turn back our guide, and I marked right around this line is where I want my knee joint to be. So on our upper leg layer, we'll select our ellipse tool right to the center, hold Alt and Shift and drag it out like that. Okay, let's turn off our guide. We'll press K so we can see those strokes. Select our ellipse, and we'll slowly bring it towards that line. Right, so see, it's almost touching. We got to go a tiny bit bigger. Perfect. And see this? How we have two intersecting points? That's what we want. We'll zoom in real close, hold T and swipe to kind of swipe those lines away. Same thing here, T, swipe, there we go. Let's set up our pivot point now. We're going to grab these 2 points, Control C, Control V, shift up and to the left, and then using Alt and Shift, we'll drag these points right to the middle. And we'll zoom in real close, drag them farther, and drag them even farther like that. Great, we're set up. I'm going to copy all this artwork, copy, Control C, paste it on my lower leg. We can use Shift up and to the side. Now we're in the exact same spot. On my lower leg, let's select this pivot point on our peg and move it right to the center of this dot, just so it's already set. Okay, we can turn off our upper leg right now. And for the lower leg, let's use our cutter and cut away the top area. Right, we'll cut away this center piece, and we don't even need this pivot point anymore. Perfect. Let's do the same thing for our upper leg. So we'll turn off the lower one, select our upper leg, and cut the lower part away. Nice. So now if we select both of these, you'll see we have a perfect joint rotation there. That's good. Let's insert our auto patch, just like this, just like that. We'll cross auto patch these to each other, and let's fill in the color. We'll create color art from line art on our color layer, fill in the top, and same thing, create color art from line art, fill in the bottom on our color art. Right, things are getting patched, and just like the arms, you'll see we don't have any overlapping lines. So let's go in, line art, we'll copy it, paste it on the overlay. Now in our drawing view, we can kind of just have a closer look. We'll get rid of this. That looks fine. And then on our lower leg, we'll do the same thing. Copy the artwork onto the overlay, drawing view, and we can kind of get rid of this. Okay. Look at that. So now we have overlapping lines here, and even when it's forward in Z depth, we have overlapping lines the other way. So easy, so fast. Okay, let's add our deformers now. So I'll turn off this leg, and just so we can see, I'll turn off this leg and I'll turn off the pelvis so I can just see this piece. I'm going to go to the overlay, right? And just like we did with the arm, let's make it a nice green color so I can see where the line ends. And I'll create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Create envelope, 5 points. Okay. Right, we've been doing this whole time, so this should be automatic to us at this point. I'll select my hammer and wrench tool. I'll move these points around, and I want them to be right on the edge of these overlapping lines. Right, we'll just adjust these here. Right, and that's just going to be helpful when I'm animating. I can kind of have more control of where I want these overlapping lines to go. Okay, nice. We can go back on our overlay and kind of just put these back to black. Looking good. Let's do the same thing on our lower leg. Select green. Now we'll do create envelope. 5 points again. Yep, same thing, 5 points. Right, and this seems to be in the exact position we want. So we can leave that, which is nice. Okay, let's turn these back on. Let's put this back to black. Okay, let's patch the pelvis now. So pelvis and upper leg is what's going to be patching. So we'll go to the upper leg group. We'll add another auto patch, always to the left. This is kind of just to keep things organized for me. And then we'll plug the pelvis into the upper leg, and then the upper leg into the pelvis. Right, that's good for now. Let's adjust our pivot point for our upper leg right here. And the pelvis, I'll kind of put it up there. Right, that's fine. Okay, nice. That's coming along. Let's draw the foot next. So we have a placeholder for the foot. I'm going to draw the drawing substitutions after. Right now, what I want to focus on is this cuff for the pants. So all we did, right, we created a square, we added a deformer, and then we cut it with our lower leg. Right, we made sure that we separated all this line art and color art so we can move the line art in front, right? That's why it shows. The thing is, if this foot is ever in front of my leg, right? Let's say I want the foot to be facing the camera or something. It's going to be weird because this is a drawing substitution, so we can't really get this nice curved angle, right? If the camera's if the foot's facing the camera. What I'm going to do is I'll create a foot cutter. Right, we'll plug it in just there. We'll throw a peg on it. And what I want to do is plug it right in to this lower leg. So wherever this lower leg moves, this foot cutter is going to move with it. So what I like to do is I'll go to my lower leg, and I'm going to grab the line art and paste it on my foot cutter. And let's turn off our cutter and this lower leg so we can see what we're doing. So on the foot cutter layer, I'm going to select this line art. I'm going to select these points and just move them down because I don't want it to be that tall. We'll move it down right to here. That looks good. Just like that. And we'll create an invisible stroke. So we'll go to our paint bucket tool, select stroke. Under tool properties, let's select this guy and press K. So we can do a straight line all the way across. Now let's cut these pieces away. Nice. So we're going to be doing the same thing as the eyebrow. Right? We're going to be making like an invisible cutter that cuts the foot just like the eyebrow cuts the eye. And if you remember, the way we did that was separating our line art and our underlay art layers. Okay, we'll plug those in. So if we go into our drawing view, we have our line art. We'll cut it, we'll paste it on the underlay, and then we'll fill that underlay with this green color. We'll go in, we'll delete all of these lines, and then on the line art, we'll just delete these side lines and the top invisible stroke. Right, so now it's completely separated. Right, so if we turn on our leg again, turn on this cutter, right, this is behind it, so we don't see it right now. But if we put the foot in front, we add a cutter, and then we use our underlay to cut the foot. You'll notice that half the foot is being cut off, and then if we move our foot cutter down, more and more of the foot is missing. So if you take a look, our lines are looking weird. Let's just move our line art in front of our lower leg, and if we move this peg forward in Z depth, so now it's in front of our foot, you'll see it cuts it pretty nicely. Throw a deformer on this guy, envelope creator, 4 points. And now, if we ever need our foot to be facing the camera, we can really adjust these pieces just like that. Let's say he was doing a front walk. We can really make it look like that foot is coming towards the camera or angling up. If we need to reset these, we'll select our deformers, press this up here to reset. Let's reset these pegs to their original position as well. It's kind of in the way, right? We don't always need it to be turned on, just like our eyelids. So let's create another handle. Let's move this over. I'm going to Control C, whoops. I'm going to Control C, Control V, and we'll go into our properties. Under the drawing, we're going to get rid of this overlay. We'll rename this foot cutter handle, and we'll only activate the overlay on this one. We won't give it its own peg, we'll just plug it right in to the existing foot cutter. I'll create a comp and plug it right into there. And we'll call this handle comp. So now I'll select my handle, go to my drawing substitutions. Let's duplicate this drawing substitution. So now we have 2. On my overlay, let's grab this handle, just an ellipse, and get rid of that line. Now we'll go on our line art. We'll delete this line art. We'll delete this line art. We'll go to the underlay, delete the underlay, and now we have 2 different drawing substitutions. I'll go to my second one. I'll go into my camera view and press Control D to rename it. I'll say 1 off. That'll be the default state. And then if I ever want to turn it on, I just need to select my handle and turn on my cutter. The thing we got to do is do our visibility node, plug it right in there, and then we can kind of just turn off the soft render. So now when we render it out, it doesn't show up. So also the foot, I just decided it's going to be a single drawing swap, so I just made it look a little nicer, right? We have this foot cutter and this cuff, That should give us all the flexibility we need if we need different angles of the foot. Draw the different angles of the foot, and then use this cutter to kind of adjust it properly. Connect all these pieces together. So we have the lower leg. I'm going to create a peg on top and say full lower leg. And I'll rename this peg to just shin. I'll connect the foot up to this guy, and I want my pivot information to be the same as my shin. So we'll copy this over, just like that. And then kind of just like the arm, we'll go to our shin peg after this is copied, and we'll kind of move this down to here, just in case we need to base the foot and bend the legs like that, right? That could be super, super helpful. Next, our upper leg, we'll create a peg on top and call this our full front leg. And we're going to plug in our full lower leg. Nice, same thing. We'll copy this pivot information. And this is kind of the easiest, most versatile leg setup that I've seen. It kind of works for everything, right? And it's pretty easy to use. We have the foot and the ankle, just like that. So let's duplicate these legs. So for our arms, we grouped them and duplicated them that way, right? Because it wasn't really messing up our hierarchy. But now let's try to ungroup the legs and duplicate them that way, just in case our hierarchy is going to get messed up. This way we can have both options. So the first thing you want to do is put everything in your legs into a comp to kind of keep it organized. Just double check all our drawings are correct. Our pivot points are in the right spot. See, with our foot cutter, we got to move this guy maybe down here. The pant cuff's looking good. Upper leg, shin. Perfect. So make sure the things you want to have deformers on them have deformers on them. So let's grab everything, move it over a bit, because I'll have both legs on either side of the pelvis, just to kind of keep things a little easier. I'm going to select everything. You can go clone drawings only. And now we have all these nodes over here. And we'll move them into that space. This is a reason why we wanted that comp, right? Because now we can just plug it in. We'll take our peg here. We'll flip it with 4 and then move it to the other side, just like our arm. Right, we'll move that in. We can add a static transformation. Right, we can hold Alt and insert it right in, and then just kind of replace that peg. And then we'll go Make Immediate Transformation, press Close. We'll reset this peg, and then we'll reset this pivot point. It's a little bit messy, right, but we're basically doing the same thing. And now what we need to do is kind of revisit some of our nodes and reconnect our auto patches. So our upper leg is over here, right? And this is where the pelvis should be patching it. So here's our pelvis. Let's go into the group, create a new auto patch, plug that into the left, and then we'll grab our pelvis and plug it in here. And then we'll grab our upper leg and plug that into our pelvis, just like that. We can kind of move this guy up so it's all in line. Let's shift everything over so we have some more space to work. Yeah, let's move this guy down. Right, our legs are working pretty well. Now what I want to do is let's create a backdrop so we separate these immediately. So I'll select my cloned leg, insert backdrop, and we'll call this back leg. These nodes, we'll call this pelvis. We'll select our original leg and call this front leg. So things are very, very organized. Even though we didn't group them, we still kind of contain them in these backdrops. Create a peg on top. We'll call this legs. We'll plug in our legs. And we can actually leave that pivot point where it is. Now for our pelvis, we'll create a peg on top and call this lower body. And we'll adjust this peg kind of right around there. Nice, so let's turn on our upper body, guys, and take a look. Right, our rig is looking pretty good. So the next video, guys, we'll add some finishing touches on the lower body, fix some small problems, and then we can group it all together. So before we finish off this lower body, let's adjust it a bit. So I'm going to move this leg over, and I'll make this pelvis a little bit bigger. So if we take a look at this view, there's this crotch line that kind of overlaps the leg. Right? And right now, we don't have that. So what I'm going to do is, let's create a new drawing and call this crotch. We're going to plug this right in to where the pelvis should be. I'll give it its own peg, and I'll plug it underneath the pelvis. Just like the pelvis detail, wherever this pelvis moves, this crotch is also going to move. And I kind of want it to be the exact same thing as my pelvis. So I'll go to the line art layer. With my black selector arrow, I'll select this thing at the top. And I'm just going to select everything, Control C, go to my crotch, Control V, just like that. Right, see how it overlaps? And now what I'm going to do, keeping this selected, I'll use my cutter. We can use our lasso select, and I'll kind of just come in and cut away the pieces that I don't want. Right, see how that's overlapping now? That's what we want. We go to our color art over here with our contour editor. And let's just kind of delete these points, right? Let's simplify this a lot. Right, we can move this out. As long as we don't touch this line, it should be fine. So let's get rid of these extra points. Just really simplify this. Just move it out here. We can even kind of round this color art in. Just like that. And if you want to be fancy, you can go to this pencil editor we'll create, if we hold control, we can kind of create points along the line. And what you can do is kind of like taper this line in. Right, that's looking pretty good. And then we can kind of get this view when we need to. So let's use a display. I'll plug it into my crotch, display it. And now we can add a deformer. Let's do 5. So I'll go here, just undo that, go back, and I'll press 5. Okay, let's move these around. I want this to kind of be here. We'll move this over. Actually, there we go. Let's move this in the corner, and we'll just adjust these points. All right, that's looking good. We can kind of get rid of this display. Now the problem is, right, this crotch is in front of our details. So let's go to our details and move them in front. There we go. All right, let's adjust our backdrop so we can move this back in. Let's adjust our pivot point. Just like that. That's good for the pelvis, that's good for that. Go and check again, make sure these pivot points are correct. But now let's group this lower body. So under our lower body peg, we're going to select everything up to that comp, that lower body comp, and press Control G. Right, it's nice and contained. A lot of nodes going in and out. So we can kind of add a backdrop. Put that there. And we'll call it lower body. Right, nice and simple. Rename this group lower body. Right, and it's nice and simple, nice and organized. And if we go in, we have our nodes over here. Is that there's this little port that was created. So let's go into our group and see what's going on. Right, we got this. It seems it's connected to this comp and our lower legs. So our overlay, right, because it's the leftmost one, they're being connected to this comp. So I think we can just get away with plugging them back in to where they're supposed to go here. We'll just move that there for that leg. And let's check. Right, our overlays are still working. That's good. Right, and now we don't have that little extra port. That's looking great. Finish off these legs. You can do just like the hand. You can do just like the arms and add these selectors to kind of quickly select the pieces of the leg. But if you don't feel you need them, you also don't have to add them in. Of course, the last thing, let's go to our lower body. We have the upper body. Let's create a peg on top of this guy. And we'll call this master peg. And we'll connect the lower body to that. Right, we can kind of move this pivot point down. And now everything is kind of connected as one character, right? We can step up to the legs, we can step up to the upper body, and if we want, we can move the whole body. Perfect, so in the next sections, we're gonna get ready to do our turnaround, but what we need to do first is create the mouth shapes. We need to create the rest of the hand drawing substitutions and the feet drawing substitutions. let's start drawing the hands. So here are a few hand charts. So you'll have access to these in the exercise files. There's also the feet and the mouth shapes, but we'll get to those after. So at this point, we kind of want to think about how many options we want to give our animators, and also most important hand shapes, right? To communicate expressions, to hold props. And we kind of have to see, we have to balance the time it takes to make these hands versus how convenient it's going to be for the animators to use. From experience, as an animator myself, I always appreciate when there's a lot of hand drawing swaps. It really helps speed up my workflow. So I went in and actually got quite detailed with these hands. So as you can see, I did a full turnaround, also a different angle of each hand, and then here are some special hand shapes where we're grabbing things or emoting in a cool way. I think this is a good start for this rig. And remember, you can always add and update these hand drawings later on. If you're looking for some good hand reference, I found all of these shapes on Pinterest and Google, so there's a lot of resources out there. Okay, so let's actually bring in these hands to our rig. We'll go File, Import, Images. We'll go to Browse. I have them all saved on my downloads. I'll open them. We'll just leave everything as it is and press OK. So we can select our hand in our camera, press O in the node view to kind of jump right to it. So I'm going to cut this and go into my hand drawing. Right? I'll paste my reference here. And just for now, I'll put it at the front. We can select it, add a peg, and kind of just move it back in space. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and kind of move it in the general area of my hand. So our thumb's kind of on the wrong side. We can flip our reference. There we go. Now it's on the right side. Let's select our reference, press Ctrl-Q, and let's bump up the quality of this guy pretty high. I'm going to move my peg here. These hands are looking a little too big for me, so I'm going to scale it down to try and match the size of my previous hand. Now we can start drawing. So we won't go through each one. I'll just draw one hand, and then you can kind of do it yourself. One thing I would say before we start is we got to make sure that we're thinking about which fingers do we want on our overlay layer. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create an entirely new drawing swap. I can see I need to adjust this even more. Let's move it right there. There we go. On our line art layer, let's start drawing our hand. So for here, I think I want this thumb to be on the overlay. Everything else is going to be on the line art. So grab my rectangle tool with my line color, just like we did before, and draw this guy. In the contour editor, we can turn on snapping to snap it right here. If you want to, you can deactivate your actual rig reference to see a little bit better, but I can see just fine. So now I'll kind of create some points here and follow reference. I like to use the shape tools for this as well. I don't really use the pencil tool that much. And these hands don't really have to be exact, right? We'll get them close. I'll create a point there, delete that. Right, and I like to try and keep the same line as much as possible. But if you need to draw a new line, you know, that's okay too. It doesn't really matter. Create a new point, drag it up. And these points, we can just use the cutter and kind of swipe them away. And now they're gone. But the cool thing is, once you do it once, you can probably just reuse your hand kits for a lot of the other rigs. So it is very helpful to do a good job here. I have my thumb on the overlay, so I'll go on the overlay layer. Now we'll draw in that thumb. Kind of drop that down. Because remember, the overlay lines on our hands won't auto-patch the wrist. Okay, nice. Let's fill it in with some color. So we can create a point here, get rid of this, and then we'll go in and we'll kind of taper this line in. That looks good. Same with this one. We'll taper these lines. Let's go back to our line art. Let's go back to our line art. We'll fill in the color layer. And kind of same thing. Let's go adjust these lines. Let's taper these lines in a little bit. Right, we're really going to spend some time and make these hands look nice. It is a lot of work, but I find, again, as an animator, I always appreciate it when the rigs come with some good quality hands that I can use for my animation. First hand done. So we have our placeholder here. And then what I would do is I go to my reference. And I kind of just shift it over. Go to my drawing swap, and we can just create a new drawing substitution. And now we can draw in the next hand. So I'm going to skip ahead, guys, because that's a lot of hands to do, and we'll come back when all these hands are finished. So I just wanted to go over an easy way to draw the overlay layer on your hands. So for this hand, I want the fingers to be on the overlay layer, but I need everything to kind of connect perfectly. So what I'll do is I'll draw everything on my line art, and then kind of copy it, paste it to my overlay, and delete the parts that I don't need. So I'll show you that now. I think this is a good process. So we're just going to draw everything on the line art layer, right? Just using our shape tool, kind of moving these points around. I like to kind of go to the outlines first, and then we kind of fill in the inside knuckles after. But you can kind of do this however you want, however you like to draw in Toon Boom. Another shape, let's draw the thumb. And so the thing here, if you draw a new shape on the same layer, when you cross over, right, it's going to keep these shapes separate. But if I have the same shape and I kind of break a point off and kind of intersect them that way, then Toon Boom is going to create a point for you. So that's just something to keep in mind when we're working with these shapes. Okay, let's draw the knuckles in. I'm just going to draw right past, like here, and this is a very fast way. You draw right past the other line, hold T, and we can just swipe away and cut that line right off. Same thing. Okay, now we'll switch to my smaller thickness. Right, I find it's nice outside lines to be a little thicker, inside lines to be a little thinner. It looks really good at the end. All right, now we can swipe these away. We'll add one last point there. Okay, now using the pencil editor, let's taper these lines. Hold Control, press kind of towards the end. Now I'll taper these lines in. It just makes it look a little nicer and not so even. Cut this, taper this in. lines. So now let's copy everything, Control C, and put it on the overlay layer, Control V. Right, so on our overlay we have the hand, and on our line art we have the same hand. Let's go back to the overlay, and now let's think about what we want to be in front. So I want these fingers to be in front. So if this hand is holding something, I want the fingers to appear in front of that object. So it needs to be on the overlay layer. Let's press K to see our strokes. I'll use this close gap tool, and I'll kind of just close whatever I think is going to be on the overlay. So here, that's looking good. Now I'll come in and I'll just delete the rest of these points. We can cut this. I'll grab these points, delete them. Right, you can see they're not being deleted because they're also on the line art layer. Just like that. Everything in blue, let's also cut this away. So now everything in blue is going to be my overlapping lines, and everything else is going to appear underneath. So now let's fill this in with some color. We're still on the overlay. Fill that in. Let's go to the line art. We'll create color art from line art and fill everything else in on the bottom. So now we have a hand that we can overlap our fingers in Z depth. Now if you look, the lower hand is still there. So we kind of have to be careful when we move this around. But usually, we're just going to be moving it forward or backward in Z depth. So it doesn't really matter what's underneath. And that's how I like to create my overlays for my hand. So, after a while, I finally went in and finished the rest of these hand drawings. So, now, I didn't use every single hand drawing in my reference. A few of them were redundant. A few of them I don't think I'll actually need that pose. But I did a good amount. I think in total, we got around 43 drawings. And you'll see that the fingers, you can layer these in front or behind things. So just in case we need to be picking things up, these are functional hands and it's going to work. And we can always add more drawings afterwards. But I want to show you guys something cool. So at the end, I kind of made an extra drawing substitution. I thought I was going to draw another hand. It turns out I don't need it. So I'm going to show you guys how to edit these drawings and kind of delete drawing substitutions. Because in earlier versions of Toon Boom, you couldn't do this. So let's go here in our drawing substitution tab. If you don't see it, go to Window and drop down to Drawing Substitutions. We'll select these three lines in the top left corner, and we'll just enter edit mode. Right? Immediately, our drawings turn red. We can select them now. If we right-click, we can rename these drawings or even delete them, which is really nice to keep unnecessary drawing swaps out of your rig. And when we're done, we can go back to these three lines and just uncheck edit mode, and now we're back to normal. Another thing, since these hands are cloned, the drawing swaps automatically update in our other hand as well. So going through the same process, guys, you guys can go ahead and do the feet. So create a few feet drawing swaps, and then we'll look at how to do the mouth. So we went in and drew the 5 drawings for the feet. That'll get us through this turnaround. If we need more feet for like a walk cycle or something, we can add that in at the end of the rig. But for now, let's push forward and start on this mouth. And this is probably one of the most complicated things to do, especially because we need to make a mouth that works for the front and the side view. So first things first, we need to make some space. Let's move our pieces over, and I'll extend this mouth here. Create a comp for the mouth, just because there's going to be a lot of pieces, and I want to keep track of them. Plug that in, there we go. So now we need to use these art layers to separate the lips, the inside mouth, the teeth, and the tongue. We want to manipulate those pieces individually. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to regular copy and paste this mouth node. 1, 2, 3. Paste it 4 times. Now we plug it in. Rename this. I'll rename this to lips. Rename this one to, let's say, top teeth. We'll rename this guy to the tongue. Whoops. To tongue. Rename this to bottom teeth if we need it. Okay, that's fine. Let's create some pegs. And I'll create another peg here and name this lips P. And now I'll plug that in here with Alt. We'll plug everything into the top mouth peg. And let's just adjust the pivot points. So for the lips, I want it roughly in the same spot here. The top teeth, same thing as well. The tongue, I'll have it somewhere here. And of course, the bottom teeth will have it here. Let's take a look at our drawing swaps. I'm going to create a new one with duplicate. So now we have 2. We can really work on this mouth. But if you notice right now, we have 4 of the same mouths, right? Because these are the exact same nodes, they just have a different name. We're going to come and separate the art layers. My lips, I'm going to go to drawing. I only want to enable my line and color art. For my top teeth, I only want my overlay art to be enabled. And for my tongue, I'm going to have it on the underlay. Right, so if you notice for my bottom teeth, I kind of ran out of drawing layers. So what can we do? Well, I can come in here and choose a color selector. Right, I'll copy it and paste it, so now I have 2. And now for the lips, I'm only going to choose my line art. Okay? That's on the overlay. I'll put my tongue on the color art now. And now we have an extra slot. Oops. And now we have an extra slot for our bottom teeth on the underlay. These lips, I'm going to rename these color selectors. They're not going to come into play yet, but they will. I'll call this one lip line, close. And I'll call this one mouth fill, and I'll close it. Right, and so what these nodes do, these color selectors, they kind of act as art layers, but they filter things by color. So let's plug these in. We'll split this up into 2, just like this. And we'll come to our color palette, and see I have an inside mouth color. I'm going to press plus and add a lip line color. So the inside mouth, you can make it, just to show you, I'll make it a dark red, but you can make it whatever color you want. Okay, so now what I can do, I'll plug this back in so I can see, and I'll select my lips, and I'll fill it with my lip line color. It's the same color as before, but let's just check it. Yeah, exactly. So it is this color swatch. Unplug this now. And let's enter the tool properties for this color selector. Press this plus button, go to our Bruno palette, and let's look for our lip line color. Just like that. And there you go. It shows up right here. So for the mouth fill, let's do the same thing. but we'll do an inside mouth instead. Close. Right, so we don't have an inside mouth, so it's not going to show up, but we know it's working. Now we have our mouth separated into the layers we need so we can start drawing the actual artwork. All right, nice. So let's import that mouth chart that came in our exercise files. So included in these reference files, we have the front and the quarter front mouth views. We don't have the profile views because we're going to use our front mouths and kind of just manipulate them that way. File, import images. We'll do Bruno mouth front. These will be included in your exercise files, so just wherever you save them on your computer, grab them from there. All these settings are going to be the same. We'll just press OK. Yes. So the first thing, I'm going to actually turn off my reference here so I can kind of see. I'll press O. So I'll select this guy, press O to jump right to it. I'll cut it with Control X. I'll go to the mouth, press O to jump to there, and paste it right here. I always like to keep it close to what I'm working on. We'll plug this in front, we'll throw a peg on it, and we're going to make it see-through. So in the timeline, we'll press O to jump to it, we'll press this, and kind of just scale that down. Match the head as much as I can with my current head position. Right, so it's a little smaller. Move my pivot point. We'll say like right in the center. Just kind of holding shift. I'll move it up till it's roughly the same size. That should work for us. Okay, let me turn this off for a second. Let's go to our lips. I'm going to actually delete this first drawing substitution just so we can start fresh. Delete it. Now we only have our second one. Let's rename it front neutral 001. And press our reference, press Control Q, bump up the clarity so we can see it. Shift it over a bit. There we go. Select our lips, and we'll kind of just move these points down so they match a little bit better. Okay, nice. And as I move through, I'm just going to select my peg, press Shift left, and kind of just move my drawing over until it's about lined up with my other drawing. We can even lock this in the tool properties up here so I can't select it accidentally. And now let's add a new drawing swap. Create this one, and then we'll do the side mouth. But in reality, I'm going to have to draw all of these different mouth shapes. But it's all going to be done the same way. So I'll create a new drawing swap to duplicate it. I'll select it, Control D to rename, front neutral 002. It's extremely important for the mouth to stay organized. We can get rid of this. We'll start again. On my line art layer, let's do the shape for the mouth. Right, I'm just roughly gonna follow my design. Nice. So now for the teeth, we'll make sure they're plugged in. The top teeth, remember it's going to be on my overlay layer. And actually, we can rename these in case I forget. So this will be overlay. The tongue was on the color art. The bottom teeth are going to be on the underlay. And the lips are going to be on line art. Top teeth, let's go to the overlay, color, line, And I'm going to select my thinner brush, and I'll just draw in a nice big rectangle here. I'm going to leave it like this for the tongue on my color art. We can't see it, but I'm going to draw it anyway. I'll take an ellipse and just kind of make a nice circle down here. Leave the same size. There we go. I'll fill all of these on the same layer. So I'll fill on the color art, on the top teeth, I'll fill on the overlay, and I'm not even going to draw bottom teeth for this view. And I won't fill in the lips just yet, because it's going to be easier to see when I'm drawing my mouths. Okay, so we got some teeth. Let's do our next mouth shape. We'll move this over to an open mouth now. I'll come in here, create a duplicate drawing swap. We'll call it front neutral 003. Okay. Make sure we're clicking on the right drawing. Now let's move our lips into place. Just like that. On our color art layer, we'll select our tongue, move it down, and we're using the drawing tools here. We're not using animation tools. So we're actually moving the drawing swaps. On the overlay, let's just move the teeth up and kind of cheat it like this. And from this point on, these top teeth shouldn't really move. So actually, I'm going to go through and draw all of these mouths in this same way. I'm going to do this, the neutral mouths, and then I'll do the happy mouths as well. You can do that if you want, and we'll come back when it's all done. Okay, nice. So we have all our mouths drawn. There's going to be 8 mouth shapes of each kind of happy and sad state, right? Just the essentials to get you through some basic lip sync. We have our happy ones here. We have these special mouths with the tongue on the roof of the mouth, and then the F sound, and then the same exact ones with the sad mouths. So now let's go in each one of these and fill in our inside mouth color. Right, we'll be on the line art, and we can just fill it in right there as we scroll through. Okay, and now we can kind of start making this look like a mouth. So let's think back to our eye and our pupil, right? Imagine the lips are the eye and everything else is the pupil. So we need to cut the teeth and the tongue so it stays inside the mouth. I can actually get rid of my reference. Actually, I'll just move my reference out of the way. We don't really need it anymore. So let's create a comp. Plug it in, and we'll plug in our teeth, tongue, and other teeth into it. We'll get a cutter, cut here. Now we need to cut everything with the mouth fill. And make sure our lip line is in front. If we invert it, right? Now, all our pieces are in the mouth. And they actually look pretty good. So if we didn't have a side view, this mouth would be pretty much done. We can adjust each of these pieces individually. And if we wanted to, like say for the quarter front view, we would draw another set of drawing substitutions and just label them accordingly. But let's do the profile mouth. So I can move this over to kind of see, show you guys what's going on here. We can hide these lines for now. So with the profile mouth, I kind of want it to be cut off at the side of the head, right? So we don't want to see any of this. And then we can readjust our teeth to kind of be here and our tongue to be here. But the main part is, how are we going to cut the side of the head? And this is kind of where it gets a little complicated. Okay, so to make this happen, we're going to need a little more space. Move everything over. And we're going to focus on these lip and mouth fill. This is where the magic is really going to happen. Let's do the line art first. I'm going to get a cutter, and I'll cut the line art. Okay, we can move it over. What we want is this line art to be cut by the jaw. So let's find our jaw. It's on this side. And we'll drag this guy right into there. Oops. And we'll drag this guy right into there. Right? We can invert this. And now you see, right, the line stops right at the jaw. So that's good. That's what we want. Okay, nice. So now let's focus on this mouth fill, the color art layer. We got to get rid of that. So what we can do, let's create a new drawing substitution and call it like profile mouth. So I'll select this guy, I'll duplicate it, and we'll call it profile happy, and this was, I think, 003. Okay, you'll see it appears down here. Let's go to our colors. And now, to kind of differentiate these mouths, I'm going to add another inside mouth color. We'll call it inside profile mouth. And we're going to make this a weird, like, green cutter color. Right, something that we're definitely going to notice. Okay, so before we fill it in, let's go to our mouth fill, and we need to add it to our color filter. Profile mouth, press close. Now, when we fill it in, it should work, right? There we go. It changed. So it's completely separate from our other mouths. You're probably saying, hey, Fabio, nothing happened yet. Well, you're right. We didn't really do much. So let's insert a cutter under here. So what's going to be different is we need to tell Toon Boom what to do when there's this weird green color and when there's this other regular color. The way we do that is with a color override. We'll plug it in between the mouth and that cutter we just created. Just like this, we can hold Alt and drag it in into our color override now. And it looks a little complicated, but all you really need to know is these are the palettes, these are the colors. Let's select our Bruno palette and find our original inside mouth color. We'll go Render Selected Colors Only and press this from the drop-down. Now, we'll press this arrow, right? And you'll see that this color shows up. So what we're basically saying is when this color is showing up, cut this a certain way. We want to cut it is just with the jaw again. Here, we'll invert. Nice. So now let's figure out that green color. So if we look at our drawing substitutions, in our green mouth, I move the teeth and the tongue over, right, so we can kind of see what's going on. You'll notice it's not showing up. That's just because we have a color override only for our original inside mouth color. You'll also notice that it's not cutting anything, so we need to fix this. So what I'm going to do is the same thing before. I'm going to copy my color overriding cutter like this. We don't need this to be inverted for now, and I'll plug this in. I'll go to my tool properties, I'll get rid of this guy, and we'll go back to our palette. Let's press our inside mouth color. Make sure we're on Render Selected Colors Only, and press this arrow. Okay? So now what I want this mouth to do, instead of being cut by the jaw. I wanted to cut the jaw and also the beard. So I'll come in, I'll plug this cutter in. Remember, this is our jaw, this is our color art, and that's our line art. So I'm going to need to cut both of those. Let's get a cutter in here as well. And we'll just drag it in. 1, 2. Right? You'll see the jaw disappeared, but the beard is still there. So what we can do here, paste that cutter, we'll plug it underneath, and then we'll cut the beard as well. That, our profile mouth is taking shape. Right? And this is perfectly acceptable. All we would need to do now is just draw the rest of our mouth shapes like we did before. I want to draw in the rest of my profile mouth shapes. Right, so we can kind of just reuse what we're doing. We'll just duplicate these drawings and just rename them. Profile Happy 001. Right, we'll come to the next one, duplicate it, rename Profile Happy 002. Right, and what we can do is I can kind of take these teeth, copy them, get rid of these teeth, and paste the ones that I copied. So they're in that exact same spot. Let's do the same thing with the tongue. Copy it, delete this one, and paste it. Next thing, we need to fill in with our weird green color, just like that. Perfect. So we already have mouth 3. Let's go to mouth 4, duplicate, rename Profile Happy, Profile Happy 004, right? And you guys kind of get the idea. We'll get rid of those teeth. We'll paste those other teeth right here. Get rid of the tongue. And this is kind of just to keep everything in the same spot. Right? We'll paste the tongue. We can even move it down. And then we'll fill in with this weird green color. 1, 5. So we'll go through the happy mouths, and then you can kind of do the neutral ones in the same way on your own. Duplicate, rename, Profile, Happy 005. Oops. We forgot the underscore here, right? So we got to make sure we label it the same, or else they're going to get out of order. At the top teeth, right? Get rid of these guys, replace them. We'll do the same thing with the tongue. We'll copy it. We'll replace it and kind of just move it roughly into the position we want. And then we'll fill in that green color. Six, duplicate, rename, Profile Happy 006. It's important at this stage to just take your time and don't rush, because that's kind of when you press the wrong button or like something unexpected happens. So just take your time, be patient. You should get through this pretty easily. Everything in this mouth and kind of move it forward, right? It's cutting a little bit too far away. There you go. These ones are going to be a little tricky, the tongue and the F sound. Let's duplicate it, rename it, Profile B007. Select these teeth, get rid of those, paste, then we'll select the tongue, copy it, get rid of this tongue, paste, and we kind of need to adjust this guy. So we'll have it just come out here like that. and then we'll fill that weird green color. There we go. Last one is 8. We'll duplicate, Control D, profile, happy 008. Just like that. Right, now that everything is set up, it's actually quite easy to edit things. Let's get this tongue and kind of move things around. There you go. Go to our line art and fill in that green color. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, guys, for the neutral mouths, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off this profile. So you can see we have like our front mouths here. Right, they don't really work in this view, but as soon as we go to our profile mouths, right, everything's being cut rather nice. Oh, we're missing some teeth on this guy, so let's copy those, paste them in. Right, but everything else is looking really good. So we could leave it like this, but we could also add kind of a back piece to the mouth. So let's do that now. And what we're going to need is, just like we had 2 inside mouth colors, we're going to need 2 lip colors. So I'll create a new color. We'll move it under. And I'll just call it like lip behind. And for now, we'll make it like a nice bright blue or like a nice purple. We'll change this back to black. I just want to show you the difference. To make sure that we go back to our color selector and add that lip behind color. Okay, cool. The line art, let's draw it in. Right, something like this. We'll make it nice and circular. You can see the problem though, it appears in front of everything. So let's use our color override. The first one, we'll say in our Bruno palette, we'll select our regular lip line, render selected colors only, right? That's just going to be normal. Now let's get another color override. And we'll plug it in behind everything. Right? And just to be safe, we'll kind of say when our lip behind color is there, we'll render those selected colors only. So now we can kind of go in, cut these lines, and then we'll fill with the inside mouth. Guess we can kind of move this one in front, that's good. And if we change this to completely black, just kind of adjust that. Whoops. Right, you can see our mouth kind of looks like there's a back piece to it. Cool. So now we do that same process with every single one of these drawing substitutions, right? So when we add it to our other drawing swaps, we can kind of just go to our previous ones, select that line we drew, copy it, paste it, and then just, adjust position. Right, so we don't have to redraw every time. Right, copy this line, paste it here, and just adjust like that. Okay, so if we take a look, our front mouths are in. Same with our profile mouths, and they look great. We can add the quarter front at the end once we get that view in place. So I'll go to this mouth, and I'll just reset this mouth peg. Right, so now it's back in the middle. And then when we turn our head, we can kind of move these mouths to where they're supposed to go. Move all this back here. We'll kind of organize this. Finally done, the front view, guys. This is all finished. So now we can go in and finally start doing these other views.